Welcome back. Senior Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Yvette Fernando, assured that steps will be taken by the country's monetary authority to ensure that minimum impact is felt on the country's economy from the domestic debt restructuring. She made these comments participating in a panel discussion on business and financial recovery in line with the Global Economic Forum, organized by Women in Management. Meanwhile, country manager of the International Finance Corporation, Alejandro Alvarez de la Campa, highlighted the lack of land availability and transparency in awarding contracts as factors that are preventing the flow of foreign direct investments into the country. Deputy High Commissioner of Australia to Sri Lanka, Lalita Kapoor, also highlighted the need for a regulatory framework that encourages foreign investments into the country.
How you observe Sri Lanka's present economic outlook going forward?
We see some turnaround at this moment, but of course I want to reiterate, if that is to be a sustainable one, still we'll have to go through some more kind of hard time and see that these policy measures are consistently and continuously driven towards achieving the expected outcome. Currently, we are facing this uncertainty about domestic debt restructuring. And in order to ensure the Sri Lanka's debt is sustainable, the external debt also wants the domestic debt also to be restructured in some manner. We are trying our best to ensure that the minimum impact is there, especially ensuring the banking system stability, financial system stability, and minimizing the social impact. Within the next 1 month or so, this will get resolved. And once that happens, we will see a good kind of business environment that will facilitate the businesses.
Once there's a crisis, what you want to do is evaluate first why you are in that crisis, what has happened. It's important to calm everyone, look at mindset, and begin to see how they can now restore confidence back by ensuring that they action what they have decided they want to do.
What strategically we need to address in order to create that conducive environment for FDI?
FDI has been declining in Sri Lanka in the last few years. We believe that one of the important elements of growth will be to bring more FDI into the country, so that there's a clear need to go back to levels of FDI that can reach the previous years. There are a number of elements, I think, that are preventing investors from coming and investing in Sri Lanka at the moment. When you have a country in default, investment banks and foreign investors will look into countries that have a more macro favorable environment. There are a number of regulatory issues as well. So, for example, the current investment code is not as conducive as it should be to bring foreign investors on things like land availability. So this is one area where the government should work more efficiently in making land available to foreign investors. I think the lack of a PPP framework and transparent processes for awarding contracts is also an issue that prevents foreign investors from coming. That's why, for example, in the renewable energy space or infrastructure development in general, there hasn't been a lot of foreign investment done because of the tendency of the government to cater to unsolicited bids rather than doing transparent processes for awarding contracts to private investors. So,
how Sri Lanka can move ahead with pacts that actually support and enhance Sri Lanka's connectivity with the rest of the region?
Tariffs are very high in this country. It really impedes growth. It means that businesses here find it much harder to import products that they would need, inputs that they would need in order to produce and then perhaps export themselves. That's quite an obvious one, you might think, but I know that the President has spoken about Sri Lanka joining some of the big free trade agreement blocks, some of which Australia is part of as well. And I can say it's not easy negotiating trade agreements, and they don't come for free. So usually you have to negotiate to reduce your own tariffs in order to get access to other countries' markets. And that would be the case for Sri Lanka as well. But I think in the short term that there are a lot of clear obstacles to trade. So you've got the tariffs there, but you've also got non-tariff barriers. Other areas that Sri Lanka could look at to develop its domestic market, including to help those companies that might then be able to export in the future, would just to look at the regulations and also the difficulties that even foreign investors have coming into Sri Lanka. We know that you want to attract a lot of foreign investment into the country, but it's very difficult, and it's partly to do with transparency. So if there's one thing I would say about crises and what can countries do coming out of crises, you might not be surprised to hear me say this, I think there's quite a role for government here and transparency. So when I say government, I'm also talking about institutions, and how does, say, for instance, your Board of Investment or your Ministry of Commerce, how do they work together to try and enable investment? So what kind of environment do you have here? Is it one that facilitates investment, that welcomes investment? At the moment, we would have to say, if we're being honest, it's not a very easy environment for foreign investors to come into.